Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Nathaniel Christopher. Kayaknya terakhir gue bikin podcast itu 6 bulan yang lalu dan hari ini gue bakal bikin podcast lagi. Tapi hari ini kita bakal pakai mostly bahasa Inggris. Dan today we have an amazing guest, an actor, TV host, medical doctor, your Mister Supranational 2024, Dr. Fezile Thanda Mkhize. How are you, brother?
Thank you so much for having me, Nath. I'm always excited to be on anything you're doing because I feel like you go at it with so much passion and honestly so much interest that I will always say yes to whatever you want me to do. So I'm very happy to be here.
Appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Of course.
So how's Indonesia?
Indonesia is amazing. Let me just start there. I've always felt like part of the Indonesian family just because the fans, in terms of the pageant fans, are just so engaging, so loving. They always support me and they're always asking, Doctor, when are you going to come? Always saying Enak Bangat, which is just like something me and Harasta, Mister Supranational 2024 would kind of go back and forth. When she had won, she taught me that about like delicious food. And I think finally coming here, I was blown away by how much support there really was. Because sometimes you hear all this positivity online and maybe you come on and people are like, oh, it was even more than I expected. And in all honesty, it's been one of the best trips I've had.
I wish you stay longer here, man.
Yeah, man. Listen,
for a month or 2 months.
I might just move in and then all of a sudden I only eat spicy food. I'm just like, I
only
like
spicy food.
Yeah, because people love spicy food, yeah, for some reason. Oh my goodness.
Okay, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And I was really inspired by your statement in the final night. Like dreams only expire when we do. It made me realize that I need to take more action in life.
Yeah.
So I just want to ask that, what was your dream back then?
Wow. It's so funny that dreams only expire when we do. When given that question, it was just a bit of a moment of pause when I first heard it, and I was kind of thinking of what the response would be, because it was something along the effect of, what would you tell somebody who feels that they're too old to really fulfill the dreams that they have? And for me, I was honestly going, if I get to a point in life where I have nothing to feel like I can achieve, which means I can't dream, because that's what you're essentially saying. That means I can't go, oh man, I would really like to get this. It's just like, no, you can't because you're too old. And I go, okay, then what do I do with the rest of my time? Do I just kind of dig up a hole, put myself in the hole and just wait to die? Because that's what you're essentially doing. Because that's what humans are. I think everybody will talk about wanting to get retirement plans and wanting to, all of these concepts of like, once you hit a certain point in your life, you just need to wait for the end and then kind of enjoy however many sunsets are there. And that's not how the human condition works. I've seen people who have been told that they have a certain amount of time to live, be it because of cancer or whatever illness they have. The thing that keeps them going is because they think that there's potentially more to put into the life they've already had. And so in all honesty, I do believe as people, because we have the ability to think, we are essentially dreams, and we try to go for those dreams and we make them goals, and that's what makes life. Indeed. And that's why I also thought about it, and I was like, okay, that was already something I was like, I have to say that. I have to be like, you only are your dreams. And then I thought about my grandmother and the fact that she was a cleaner or a maid. She didn't have higher education, but she was very smart and she had a big dream, and she kept trying to allow her children to have big dreams. And my mother is a very driven person, and she also wanted more, not just for herself, but her kids. And so I just realized that passion that my grandmother had didn't just kind of die out when she passed. It echoes even today.
The legacy.
Like, exactly. Yeah. And so I said, dreams only expire when we do, and if they're strong enough, they live past you.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And for me, that is when I went, that's the human race. There was a time where all we wanted was to be able to look after our family, people who have fought and innovated and created new things because they wanted a better world, strong dreams. And now we sit speaking into mics to people we might never actually see physically, but trying to give parts of the things we've learned in our lives. And that was a dream somebody had, that we might not know that person's name, but we were living their dream. And so, yes, it is a wild story and a wild thing to think about in that moment when asked that question. But coming from very humble beginnings, kind of farm area in my country where we'd herd cows, kind of walking. I'd like to run around without like shoes on, that kind of living. And now I'm in Indonesia. I'm probably one of the most traveled people within my family. I've gone to so many different countries. And I know very well that that's not just because I'm smart or because I'm dedicated. I'm like a culmination, a whole bunch of dreams and goals that have come together. And so all I can truly do is try amplify those dreams so that we can then hopefully have my family and the people who have known me and my family also having theirs lived out.
Amazing, man.
Yeah.
All right. So when do you feel you made it? Like you're an actor, you're a doctor, you're a Mister Supranational. You have a lot of things to do, but when do you feel you made it?
Well, let me ask you this, Nath, and I'm going to answer your question, but I would like your perspective. You're quite young.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you have dreams that you're trying to make into goals that you're trying to achieve. Do you feel like you've come and made it? Because I feel like you've made it. At the age that you are, you're doing so many things that I don't think I even thought were possible. Do you feel like there's something in you that's going, oh, okay, Nat, you're good. You're good.
As a young people, like I always want more. Yeah. But when I reflect back, oh, I made it. Like, I made it. Like, I'm grateful for it. But there's ambition. Like,
it's still something.
I'm still
there.
hungry for more.
So that's where I live. I live in like this in-between place of I'm incredibly grateful. Like, you don't even understand. For me, it's something as silly. Okay, so my mother was somebody who worked very hard. My father died when I was about 2.5. She was pregnant with my sister, and my brother, who's older than me, was about 5.5, somewhere around there. And because of how hard she worked, she wasn't always at home because she was trying to make sure we were fine. She was trying to look after. She was a teacher who became a headmistress or a principal. So for me, I was always quite nervous because I thought if she passed away, I'd become an orphan. And she was also very structured. We didn't buy things we didn't need because that was an unnecessary expense. She almost would see it as kind of a luxury. And there were these, I can only describe them, granola bars. But with the grain and the wheat and like it's all in chocolate. And she never really bought us those because they were a bit too expensive. She'd buy us like slightly cheaper chocolates, and she was like, let's not have unnecessary expenses. I remember having dreams because I'd always go past these chocolate bars in the shops. They have them in the aisles in the shops. And I'd look at them and like, Ma, and she'd be like, no. So some of my dreams, and it sounds so cheesy now, I would have such a vivid dream, such a dream where I feel like it's real. I'd grab the bar, I'd run up to the bedroom in my dream, and I was like, okay, I'm in a dream, but I know this is real. And I'd put the bar under my pillow and then go to sleep in the dream. And a couple of times I'd wake up and I'd like put my hand in it. I was like, no, that was a dream. That's not how that works. I promise you, when I tell this story, people always look at me and almost like, okay, that's kind of crazy. But I really wanted to be able to, if I wanted to, get that kind of chocolate bar, that granola bar. And I realized at some stage between that and wanting a PlayStation, because all my friends would have PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 3. My mother was like, there's no money for that. That's an expense. I was able to buy myself that little chocolate bar. I just realized like I could buy myself that when I started working as an intern, as a doctor, or even before that, actually, when I was in medical school. And then at some point a couple of years ago, I realized, I could buy a PlayStation 4 if I wanted to without really, but it seemed like such a big thing and it wasn't that expensive. But I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to buy myself my own PlayStation. I'm going to own a PlayStation. I don't even play it today. I ended up giving it to my friend because he really loves PlayStations. But I realized, that little boy in me, I became that person that little boy wanted, which was somebody who could go out into the world and look after himself, wouldn't be an orphan who didn't have people to look after himself, because he could look after himself as an adult. And I go, that is actually for me making it. My mother, thankfully, thanks to God, she's still alive, and she didn't pass away, and she's retired, and my brother's doing really well. My sister's also alive. We've had some loss in our family, but we didn't break apart. And for me, that was making it. And so there are moments where I have to tell myself, that's what you actually wanted. That was your dream. All of these other things, of course, because we're driven, as you say, there's something in me that still wants to try be the best version of myself. Because I do feel like there's something in me that can push through hard things. And I the reason why I also do it is because my greatest heroes, and we've had this conversation, I think you asked me about like reading yesterday. We were out and me and Nathaniel were kind of speaking about what it is, if I like to read, and I said yes, and what do you like to read? Science fiction for me, sci-fi was how I would escape the stresses of not knowing, the uncertainties, but then also I loved the story of, usually it's a humble farm boy, sometimes with friends, who go into a world that has bad and evil and people don't have morals and ethics, but because they come from such a strong rooted moral and ethic world, they generally end up rising to positions of power and change things because they were the farmers and the lower income people. And I think that's always so beautiful because you want that underdog story. You want the people who can understand what it is to be nervous about not knowing where things are going to happen, to be the ones who make the decisions. And so for me, that's where the other side comes in. Where I'm like, I'm not saying I'm necessarily a great person, but I try hard enough that I go, I don't think that I'm too good for something, but I do think that you need to work hard to prove yourself. And those are the kind of people I want to be making decisions in life, or to be in positions that can hopefully help people. And so the drive doesn't die out. And I always try to add onto it, lay an extra brick. I'm really trying to build the best possible life tapestry I can. And I know most of that has to be through difficulties and kind of hard work. Exactly. So those are heavy bricks, but they're ones that I want to try lay. So one day when I eventually do have to leave the earth, I would have said I tried. And that's as good as it gets.
Right, man. And who inspire you when you're growing up?
So again,
like a figure, and maybe your mom, or
no,
you look up for someone.
Definitely my mother. She is very kind, very strict, but comes from a background where she probably also didn't have certainty because her father wasn't around, and she had her mother, and her mother, of course, didn't earn a lot of money. She was quite humble amounts, but she was the first person to go and get higher education, so kind of college or varsity in the family. So she was already a trailblazer there. And then when it comes to the men in my life, because most of the men weren't necessarily there, I almost created an idea of like an incredible man. First of all, my brother. Exactly. Yeah. So my brother is somebody I looked up to. And
your older brother?
Older brother, yes. You know, with siblings, you're an older brother, so you probably wouldn't understand.
I'm the oldest.
Yeah, you wouldn't understand it because your siblings look up to you. And I looked up to my brother, but we also would disagree a lot. So we would kind of butt heads. But the things he would do, I realized I would mimic, or at least try to be like. So he was at least the real version world of some of the things I looked up to. But from the books, I really loved the concept of the heroes that were there. And that's why the sci-fi books were just, because it was always larger scale things. And all of, as much as people are like, oh, Lord of the Rings is like, oh, magic and Game of Thrones, it's magic but rooted in human things. So how does power work? You find out through those kind of elements. Somebody who perceptively, if you think of them a certain way and then what's actually happening. And I think one of the biggest lessons I learned, and it's a quote from The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan, a quote that says, death is lighter than a feather, and then it goes, duty heavier than a mountain. So when you pass away or die, that is light. You throw off the things that have weighed you down in life. But duty, if you are a doctor, if you are an alman who then has to represent their country at Supranational, if you're somebody who's going to whichever pageant, that is duty. And that duty is heavy. And it must be hard. You know, we've traveled, and it's been so much fun being in the country, but we've had duties. We've had to go somewhere and be there at a certain time.
Yeah, that's your responsibility.
Exactly.
Right?
You engage with people. You might feel a bit tired, but those people came to see you, or that's the first time they saw you, and they go, "Oh, what's this?" And they don't know that you've seen 200 people. To them, it's just you and them. And that one person might become the future leader, or think, okay, all these people who have these sashes, they're actually lies. Like, look at them. He's not actually engaging with me. Everything else to them doesn't really matter. It's that interaction. And that's why things like when you talk about pageantry, it isn't just going, oh, this person is like handsome or works out or all of these things. It's, this is a person who's really about being the best version. And I almost imagine them to be these people in the books that you read about in real life. Everybody wants a Superman. Everybody wants like a Thor superhero-like character.
Captain
America. Of course. That's the thing, right? It's the symbol. It's the symbol that you want, because you go, oh my goodness, this person is like, he can work out. He's funny. He's thoughtful, but he looks the way he looks. He listens to me when I speak to him. He's really engaging. Like, those are the people you go, okay, maybe as humans, we're actually great. Like, this is amazing. And that's why I do believe that you shouldn't have a Miss or a Mister for like ever. It's 12 months. And in those 12 months, what I'm asking you to be is to be exceptional all the time. When you engage with people, when you have that label, I need you to be exceptional, because what you are is an idea of what we can be when we're at our best. And that's a lot to put on somebody. Duty heavier than a mountain. But that ends up being something that gives promise to kids and even the people who might be older than you, because they go, maybe I can be a little bit better. If they can be somebody like this in the world, maybe I can then wake up a little earlier. Go work out a little more. Actually do the things I say I'm going to do, because look at what this person has done in this period of time.
And just pay it forward.
Exactly. And I always, like, I would say nobody should feel like, oh my goodness, I just want to keep this crown or keep this title or this ambassadorship, because I'm like, do you not feel that it's pulled more out of you? Do you want to just constantly be getting up and being, because if you feel like, oh, this is actually quite comfortable, that means, okay, it hasn't been a matter of pushing yourself. You've kind of just coasted along with it. There needs to be a certain level of responsibility, and responsibility has weight.
Yeah, man. And like life purpose, I always believe that life purpose is always go beyond ourselves.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's how we treat others, and even in simplest way, just how we treat our friends and family.
And it's not easy, but that's what I love about it, is that most things that are hard are good for you, because they're going to make you step outside of yourself. And because I said, like, life is dreams and goals, life is about that kind of making yourself grow. Because once you remain stagnant, then everything feels boring. It feels dull. You're like, okay, why am I doing this? Purpose is what drives us forward. Purpose is through dreams and goals, but purpose is needed for you to feel like there's something to wake up and live up to. And
how do you define your own purpose? Let's say, like, you're a doctor, you want to help others, you want to help your passions,
of course,
and from your TV host, from your podcast, from your anything, from your acting skills, and etc.
Jeez, my purpose. It's a tricky question, because you could almost look, because people ask me, why do you do so many different things? I go, well, all of them kind of have the same thing in common. All of them involve humans and the human condition. When you're treating people, you usually find them at their worst. They're sick, they're not feeling great, they're down, they've had an accident, they're just not in a good place. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to, one, be able to stabilize them and help them. That's the technical part. And then two, make them feel like everything's going to be all right, or give them a sense of calm. That's where the human element comes in. And I tell people,
it's the comfort.
Exactly. And I go, we speak about AI and advancements and jobs and roles that would be taken over. That component is very hard to mimic. the reflecting of
From
self.
the human connection.
Exactly. That empathy is hard to relay. I can give you something can be put into ChatGPT or some sort of processor and go, what could be going wrong here? They come in with a headache, shortness of breath, pain on the left side. What could be going? And they'll give you all of these things. But if I'm coming in with a headache, short of breath, pain on left side, I need the touch. I need okay, it's okay. Yeah. What's your name? Oh yeah, and of course, I hate the headache. I hate that side. It's going to be okay. Hey, listen, I've seen a lot of patients. I will figure this out. That already is going to start having a psychological and then hopefully physiological effect on someone where it calms them. And you would rather interact with that than a screen telling you it will be okay. I am processing. None of that is reassuring. And that's why there's an artistry to it. There's the human element. Outside of just being a scientific field, there's the human element. And that's where it comes together as an amalgamation. And for me, that's where I really love the medical component. The thinking, reading, processing is great. And then the podcasting, interviewing, travel show is on the other end of things. That's where we celebrate achievements.
But your main is...
It's human. And you hear stories about people who've come from very little and they've done exceptional things. You hear people who are at the top of their field. I was able to interview Usain Bolt, and I was able to ask him. I was like, wow, I'm meeting Usain Bolt. I met people, a guy who was in Ragnar Vikings, Ragnar Lothbrok. Like, these are people I'm going, oh my goodness. And then you hear their stories, or you speak to them like this, and you're like, wait, you're just like me. There are things that irritate you. There are times where you don't feel necessarily happy. You kind of feel down, but you're this amazing person. And you go, oh, wait a minute, that's the connection. We're all human. And the human story generally has tough times, happy times, hard decisions, times where you failed.
I guess AI can't use your feelings and emotion.
And all of those things for me end up being the same. So it's almost like the book's theme is the same. It's just different chapters. So the doctor's theme is still going to be human interaction, but it's a different chapter. The acting space is I'm now, and I'm sure you would know, I'm mimicking what it is like to be a character like this. Again, human connection. The interviewing people. I can't just interview you like, okay, yes, okay, huh? Okay. I have to hear your story, make you feel like you can open up, but also relay it back to you so we can have a conversation. So the one thing that they all have is the human condition. And for me, I think it's the most beautiful thing I can try to figure out. It helps me with communication. It hopefully makes me a better communicator, because if I speak in a room, I'm able to pick up how things are going from an audience, because I have such a love for interpersonal communications that I can convey messages a bit more effectively.
Yeah, man. And AI can't replace that.
No, can't. Yeah. It's a difficult thing. I mean, maybe they'd be able to process it enough, but there's just something about going through it. Yeah, going through it to then convey it to somebody else who has gone through it.
And you have been through a lot of life's ups and downs, roller coaster.
I mean,
I'm just curious, what was your lowest moment, or maybe a turning point? So,
I mean,
that changed everything for you.
There's been many difficult times. I'll tell you a story about a difficult time within the medical field. I think as a new doctor, and you go in and you see people. So it's always a lot easier. I mean, as students, you go and you see patients, but you don't really feel too responsible, because there's a qualified doctor who's there, and they would then take responsibility, and you as a student are helping. But after qualifying, you go through 2 years of internship, 1 year of what they call community service, and then you can decide to specialize or do whatever it is you want. And I think for me, it was within my first year, I was working in
an internship?
Yes. I was working within medical oncology. And oncology in and of itself is already quite a difficult thing, because you already know that these are people who have cancer. And if they have cancer, a lot of the times they don't quite have a good prognosis. They don't have a long time. And you can try help them with chemo, with all sorts of treatment. But generally, they're already going to have quite a tough time because cancer is just such a difficult and complex illness. So this was somebody who was quite young. He was about 15. And he already did not have a good prognosis. So he was sick. He had a cancer kind of within the blood, and it didn't look like he was going to live very long, even when he came in. But he decided to get, or not decided, but unfortunately got quite sick quite quickly while he was there. And we were trying to figure out exactly what the issue was. When you're on call, what we call on call is when you come in, say, 6 a.m, do all the work, you stay overnight. And then you leave, ideally, once the work is done and you can kind of go home. During this particular call, my colleague had asked if I could stay the day after because I'd had this long call because we were swamped with work and it's one of the more busy wards or areas. And so I stayed even longer, and somehow she ended up going home and I stayed. So you can imagine I'd been there the whole day yesterday. I stayed up. I was working the whole night, and then I still was there the very next day, and it was hitting about 6 o'clock in the evening. So that's more than 24 hours going on in like 30-something hours. So then this particular patient was not feeling well, and we needed to do an emergency kind of echocardiogram. So we needed to check the heart and see maybe what was going on with him. He was very weak, couldn't breathe well. We couldn't kind of hear the heart very well. There's all sorts of things going on. And I had booked it, thankfully, because it's hard to get. And then I had given it to a colleague, and I was like, please make sure that you follow up on this. It's very important. He might not make it if we don't get the answer, and see if there's anything we can do. Before I left, his mother had visited him, and he had been not feeling well, and she could kind of see that. And she was like, oh, doctor, I know it's not, you don't do this usually, but would it be possible for me to kind of stay with my son? Because he isn't feeling well, and I'd just like to be there because he's not feeling that great, and he's very different. And so I was like, okay, it's not really in the protocol. I went to go speak to the nurses. I really asked, pleaded my case. They were like, okay, you know what, doc, it's okay. We can allow her to kind of stay overnight. We just won't necessarily tell anybody, but she can stay with him because he isn't feeling great. And I was like, okay, great. Ended up leaving and kind of getting home. I got home at about 8 o'clock. I was quite nervous about whether or not we'd be able to get the scan through. But I eventually kind of got to sleep. And then I got up extra early that day and I rushed to work because I just wanted to see if we had gotten the result and if he was still fine. Literally 15 minutes before I got there, the nurses said he passed on. And I think within that space, him passing, I called my colleague. My colleague was unfortunately so busy, he didn't follow up on the scan, and the scan had found that he had kind of fluid within the heart area that was compressing the heart, which then eventually got to a point where the heart wasn't beating and he passed. We could have possibly tried to find a way to drain it, find a way to kind of make it work, but unfortunately, because he hadn't seen that scan and he was busy and it had happened kind of not too long after before I had arrived, he passed. And I was like, But the mother came, and the mother was so thankful that she was allowed to stay with him, was there when he passed, all of these things, and she was crying. And I think for me, that's when I just realized the kind of work that you get to do, and trying and pushing and being human in those moments can give somebody so much comfort, and it's immeasurable. She was literally crying in front of me, and I was thinking, oh man, if only we'd maybe been able to figure out a way to have this done, maybe we would have been able to get the procedure to have it drained. And she was just thankful that she was there in these last moments. And for me, I was taken aback, because that's actually what you want for people.
Sometimes the pressure's hard there, right?
Yeah, sometimes you're not going to save everyone. And the most important thing in cases like that is that you can at least give comfort. So we always say there's a Hippocratic oath that you swear, and it's like, do no harm. But you do try to relieve pain, and you do try give comfort, because that mother now has a better way of thinking about their son passing than if she hadn't stayed, arrived that morning, and he had passed, and he was just a body that was there. For her, it was a process, and she was able to find comfort in that. And I think being quite young at that time, and I was actually your age, I think I was like, oh, okay, this is one, a huge deal. Two, when you don't know what to do, be kind, be human, and be empathetic. And usually, whatever the outcome is, you can live with it because you were that in the moment.
Bro, like a small change, but really big impact for her.
And that's I probably would never come across her again, but at least her life, the family that was there was affected in a way where they would go, I can hopefully allow this to be something that helps me process this unfortunate event.
Yeah. And what's inside your mind in that kind of pressure and condition? Like, what's your mentality? What's your mindset you put there to push through in every challenge, like every pressure, not only in the medical,
of course,
medical field, but everything in life.
I think it's hard. It's very hard because I also am quite hard on myself. I'm not going to lie. I'm very kind to everybody else, but I think you're very similar to me because
but you push yourself.
You are a very kind person. You are you're somebody who feels like you are considerate, but I also feel like you probably push yourself and you expect quite a lot of yourself, and you try to be quite disciplined. And so for me, I generally go, okay, you're going to have to do this, and you're going to have to do it to the best of your ability. And so that means that you need to be exacting. You need to be quite like stringent in terms of how you do it. And sometimes that isn't good, because I've kind of started with time learning to be a bit more forgiving of myself. If I say a word funny, I would have had maybe a talk, or I would have done something, and just that one thing, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this whole thing is messed because of this one thing. And people don't even notice. They're like, what are you talking about? That was perfect. That was fine. I was like, no, it wasn't.
One that know that.
Yeah,
right?
I'll be like, they said we're giving us 60 seconds, and I had 61 seconds. I could have just improved. Could have been better by that, just like 1 second. And people will look around, and they're like, everybody else was like 2 minutes. He was like, yeah, but that 1 second. And then they'll see me be incredibly kind to other people, and they'll be like, so why are you so tough on yourself? I'm like, okay, so maybe I need to be a lot kinder with myself, but I also do feel that within tough moments, I tend to start from going, okay, I'm grateful, one, for difficulty, because pressure is a privilege. If people didn't expect things of you, that means that people just didn't think much of you. So when they expect things, it's because they think, okay,
you have the value.
Exactly, like you have value to society. Two, don't overthink things. And when things have happened and gone wrong, try not to let them sit in your mind. Because I'm somebody who ruminates, who think, okay, I could have done this, because I go, life is moving forward. Life is about moving forward. It's about looking ahead. And so thinking about the past will ruin the next steps you do in the future. And then it's just a mess, and you'll constantly be in a cycle of like irritation. So accept that those are the things that happened, and try make sure that they don't happen again, but look forward and move forward.
Yeah, it's actually not that easy, but how you put that in practice. Because
exactly.
Like every big things requires you to do the small things, like the baby steps.
Exactly.
How you put that in practice.
And that's exactly where brick by brick that kind of concept comes from, is that most of the time, most people, once you've started getting things where people look at you and they go, wow, you've done this, you almost feel like everything I do now needs to be big. Otherwise, it's useless. It's like, oh, man, that's not as big as this. I've done this. Or I've had a men's health cover. Why should I be happy if I do this small thing? And I go, the thing you need to think about is that all these big achievements, this road, is through these smaller incremental things that you do. And so you need to lay those bricks consistently so that one day you'll have something even bigger. Some bricks are very fancy because people are like, oh, that's an amazing thing. But I'm like, actually, that's just because you did all the other things that people will say small or insignificant over and over and over again. The fact that I've trained for as long as I've trained, and I kind of rock up and I do whatever workout almost instinctively now, is because I've gotten into that habit.
That's small.
Exactly. And it's those little bricks that have built up that foundation. So you keep having to lay them. And if you keep laying them, they'll create something. And not every brick is pretty, not every brick is laid perfectly, but just keep laying them, because the process of laying makes it into a habit, and then you become a master. And so eventually things that people go, that's so impressive, are just
people are see only the fancy bricks.
Exactly. It's become so second nature to you. It's the concept of operating. If you do enough operations, you will be able to cut and open and do things that you don't even think are special anymore. And people are like, wow, how are they doing? Yeah. And you're just like, oh, okay, yeah. I mean, today I'm not feeling good. It's not a fun operating day. But your not fun has become, you only think it's great when it's like 95%.
But you're used to it.
Exactly. But your baseline goes from, oh, I only do like 50% good work, to now I only do 70% good work, to now I only do 80% good work, because you've done it so often that your quality is really great. But now what you look for is like that upper 0.5% type work. But now that you've done it so often, your baseline, you're horrible. The things you think are horrible are actually exceptional to others. And that's because you do them over and over and over again. Alex Hormozy, who's...
I know that guy.
Yes, he talks about just sheer volume. If you do enough and you try to improve on the things you do, this through sheer volume and will, you will eventually be able to make your goal possible. How long that would take would vary, but if you just keep at it, you will eventually get to a point where there's no way that it isn't possible that you will get to where you want to get to.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you, Fez.
Oh, thanks, Nat. Yeah, man.
And like, as someone with so many interests, but your main focus is on medical field, right?
Well, generally, I've always had a great passion for medicine and kind of how it has so many different parts to it. But like everything else, it kind of falls into each other, because there is, I mean, even with the Supranational organization, I was able to help in terms of leprosy awareness and just an understanding of even just basic kind of medical acumen and know-how.
So it aligns.
Yes. Has really helped me to be able to help and kind of make the information a lot more relatable to others, so to make it understandable.
So the question is, how do you manage your time, and especially like your focus?
Yeah, oh man, time is a difficult...
You only have 24 hours.
Yeah, that's very true, and I feel like that's the difficulty of it all. I think, one, I'm thankful enough to have like a number of teams of people who manage certain components of my life. So of course the Supranational organization when it comes to the pageant space, and then there is kind of my modeling agency, acting agency, and then management. So the management who does generally everything in between. And they will communicate with me, and there'll be kind of communications between each other, so that there's an understanding of where I would need to be scheduling, etc. But they also understand in terms of priorities. If I go, well, I can't do this because there's this medical part, they'd have to shift things accordingly. But then from my side, I also have to try as best as I can to make sure, like, it sounds so simple, but it's also so difficult when you don't have too much time. But one, making sure that I make it to things. Two, staying in kind of some sort of physical conditioning, so that a lot of people will go, okay, tell me if we're going to do a shoot this many months ahead so I can get into shape, or I can...
Preparation.
Exactly. I know that at any given point in time, somebody might be like, okay, you might have to do this sort of a cover, or you might have to do this, or you might have to do that. So staying consistent in terms of kind of my movement and my working out and the nutrition component. And then secondly, understanding that I need to be on schedule when it comes to certain things. And Sometimes it also means not going out as much because I don't have the time to, because I have to make up for certain other parts of life. But as long as I also have those teams around me, they're able to help me juggle everything I need to do. And especially with the super component, I've prioritized it just because it is only for 12 months. So I said, okay, I'm going to try to do the best work I can, because then after that, I don't have the responsibilities of being the active kind of Mister Supranational. So that's a time and place, and then it will transition out. So they know that I try to prioritize that quite a lot.
Amazing. So you delegate jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Delegation is the big thing. And then hopefully all of them kind of helping with the schedule and making sure everything balances and is conveyed to the different parties.
Right, man.
Yeah, man.
Now, like a lot of people, especially in my generation, like Gen Z.
Gen Z.
You're millennials.
The young, the young generation.
And yeah, we want to explore and experience a lot of things.
Sure.
But like we want to grind, but sometimes we're trapped in our mind.
Yeah.
Sometimes we overthink about it and everything. So what advice you can give to us? So we can like, oh, we want to try this thing, but I want this thing too. I want this thing too. But like
it's
like
tough.
it's sometimes complicated.
Yeah, it's tough.
And like me too. Sometimes like, oh, I don't have time. Why time running so fast?
I can understand, because I know in terms of deciding to do things and when is right, and you always want to strike at the perfect time, and this might be interesting and this might not be. I always say the big thing is, one, understanding if you say you want to be something, like with the acting. I did like 2-year incubation with acting coaches with
2 years,
2 different, where we were doing Shakespeare, we were talking about how one would act. I really respect people who understand that you can't just say I'm this and not actually have the skills to be able to say that you are. The first acting credit that I have was doing Macbeth and being out in front of people and kind of doing the monologues and really acting, where acting kind of originates from in terms of not just the screen work, but out in theater. And for me, I really wanted to do that because I wanted to say, okay, I am, for all intents and purposes, somebody who's acted in a production, in a Shakespearean production, and I've used all the tools that I've learned over these 2 years. And so there is a dedication I feel you need to have if you say you are going to do something. And if you just want the name, you just want to say, oh, I'm a fitness person, or I'm an actor, but you don't actually know the tools and the things that it involves. Great for you, but I feel like it makes me feel phony or fake, or I get an imposter syndrome about it. I already have an imposter syndrome even though I do things. So I can only imagine if I actually don't feel like I've earned any of the things that I say that I can do. And after that, it's, if you really want to do something, start when you feel like
you're
you
ready?
want. Yeah, not even when you're ready, just start. If you have this idea, if you have this dream, how are you going to know it's really a dream unless you go out and do it? And I know that that's difficult. Falling on your face is embarrassing. To go, okay, I tried this and I failed. But you won't know until you've tried. And then you'll sit with this idea that you think was your thing, your one kind of passionate thing, only to realize it after spending 10 years thinking about it and doing it. You're like, oh, actually, I don't like this. And so you had all of these years where you're like, oh, no, maybe that's going to be my thing. Maybe that is the dream that I want. And especially when you're young, we're talking about Gen Z, a young point in your life, you have the time to be able to throw yourself into something and find out if you actually resonate with it. You have the biggest asset, which is time. You have energy.
Yeah.
And so go into it and see. Figuring things out is actually more beneficial than looking like you have this perfect life or you've nailed everything. Because your children are going to want to hear about the things you've learned. And you generally learn by messing up. And you generally will always mess up because nobody's going to be perfect at everything they try. And the big thing you need to have is bravery and courage.
Bravery and courage.
Exactly. Because you'll be like, oh man, people will laugh at me because I'm taking modeling photos. But you don't know if you'll be good or you'll be able to grow as somebody who models. But you're thinking, oh, people are going to say, oh, well, you look, why would you think you can do a runway? What? It's your life. those people aren't going to be featuring in your life for very long, more than likely, because they sound like people who aren't very supportive. And if it is something that you truly love, how are you going to figure it out unless you do it? You have the time, the energy. And once you figure your thing out, you'll be somebody who people are going to look at and be like, wow, that person's amazing. But when you were younger, they were going, oh, okay, why would you do that? And that's all a perspective thing. It's literally all a perspective thing. If you read enough autobiographies, you realize all the people that we think were amazing also were fumbling around with a lot of the things that they ended up being great in.
Like some of our friends, like, oh, I want to pursue my entrepreneurship journey, but at the same time, I need to feed myself.
Okay, that is true.
Now, I need to feed myself. So maybe I just look for some stability. Let's say I work in a office or but they don't actually love it, but they want to pursue that dream, but there's like something holds them down,
of course,
like about in terms of like financially,
of course.
So what do you think about it?
I think that's important to understand, that life is that way, right? So they always say the 9 to 5 is how you stay alive, and then from then on is the dreams you build.
5 to 9.
Yeah, exactly. So you need to stay alive. You need to be able to get through things. But if it really is something you're passionate about, and this is where the energy component is, you have the energy, especially when you're younger, to be able to go out and really try add to it. 2 to 4 hours outside of like everything else that you're doing could build you up to eventually have whatever that entrepreneurial dream is take over the 9 to 5. So now you have something that stay alive, helps you thrive, and you love. But unfortunately, you do have to go out into it and see if it's for you. And unless you actively do it, you'll never know. And so, especially when you're young, especially when you're Gen Z, the biggest names, even when we're talking about social media, influencer kind of world, your Mr. Beasts, your Logan Pauls, your Jake Pauls, your KSIs, all of these were people who do videos and do copious, lots and lots of videos, while also doing other things to make sure they can eat. But they were really trying to push this thing they were interested in. And now it's taken over in terms of it's what pays them for things. But they would have never gotten there if they never started, and they had to start outside of the things that they need to stay alive.
The price,
exactly,
the price.
Exactly.
Which is true,
exactly. And that's the simple truth of life. You need to do things that keep you alive, but if you really want to make it, find that thing that's yours where you can then push your passion. Yeah, man, it's crazy life.
Okay, and we go to the next segment. Yeah. It's a rapid fire question.
Okay,
it's a fun part.
Let's go. These are the rapid fires. I'll try to be quick with my responses.
Okay, one book that changed your life.
The Wheel of Time, Eye of the World.
Okay, favorite health myth to debunk.
You need supplements to be able to live a healthy life.
All right. One thing you can't live without.
Cheesecake.
Cheesecake. You love cheesecake?
Yeah. Oh, I love it. It's my favorite
We have
food.
amazing cheesecake.
You do, and I've had some. It's very good. It's very good.
If you weren't a doctor, what would you be?
I probably just would be a doctor. When I entered into medical school, I only wrote to one medical school for one thing. You have 3 options. My brother wrote that he wanted to do accounting or business. I said I wanted to do medicine, and I didn't write anything else. He said if they didn't take you, I said I'll try again next year.
And you just do whatever it takes.
Yeah, I would have just applied again next year, and then the next year, and then the next year.
What if no?
There is nothing else.
Nothing else?
Yeah.
All right. Supra or world?
Supra or world? As Mister Supranational 2024, I have to say Supra. Mr. World was great, but I think who I have become and what I also believe in and the change I want to make fits so well with the Supra organization that I think for me it's a no-brainer. It has to be Supra. Well, that was pretty quick. I feel like is that the quickest rapid fire you've had?
All right, man.
There's only been one other one, so I feel like that has to be the quickest.
Okay, I think that's all.
Yeah,
for the rapid fire question. Yeah. So before we wrap things up, I want you to give advice and maybe anything, your closing statement to me, to all people in Indonesia, especially young generation.
Do I say it to you? Do I say it to all of them?
To all of
Do
them.
I say it to my designated?
To your camera, to that one.
The thing I would love to say to everybody is never forget that everybody you see that you think has achieved great things has started probably where you are or even further back. If you have something you want, the price might be many years of working at it, but the price is worth it because it's your dream. I can only say that I'm sitting here having done a couple of things that maybe are significant to me anyway, because I knew that the cost might be many, many years. I've reached them earlier than I thought, but in the process of becoming the thing I wanted to become, I became somebody who understood a lot more about myself. And life is really about enjoying the passage of time. It's about being able to enjoy the time that you go through. And trust me, when you have nothing hard to do, it's hard to enjoy that time. And hardships are also enjoyable, because just like when you fast and you haven't had food and you have that first bite of food, you could be eating rice and it tastes delicious. And that's what gratitude is. Being able to go through a hard time and then gaining something that's positive. It feels like you won. And so do the hard things, especially the thing you really don't want to do, because that's the thing that's going to make you exceptional.
And it will fulfill you more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Fulfilling like rice.
All right. Once again, thank you so much, Faz.
Thank you, brother,
I really
man.
appreciate your presence here.
Of course. As I said, I would do any sort of medium for you. So
See you next time
of course.
in Indonesia or anywhere else.
I'm hoping you'll come to South Africa at some point.
Amen. Let's go.
But
I want to do the safari.
yeah, you guys need to get him to come to South Africa. Maybe we'll do a podcast there.
Amen. Amen.
There we go.
Next time.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Nathaniel Christopher.
And I am Dr. Fezile Mkhize.
Always be bold and trust your own journey. Thank you so much.
That is the tagline. So I'm going to say it with him.
Okay.
And we always be bold and trust your own journey.
See you next time.